Build your dreams, live rich, and leave rich.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Live Rich and Leave Rich. I'm Krish. You know, our whole philosophy here is actually quite simple. When we say live rich, we're not talking about fancy cars or big bungalows. We're talking about living peacefully, with that sense of calm that only comes from true financial clarity. All right, before we dive in, the usual but very important reminder. Everything we talk about here is purely for your education, to help you become a smarter investor. But remember, mutual fund investments do carry market risks. So please, always read the scheme documents carefully. And even better, talk to a SEBI-registered financial advisor before you invest a single rupee. Okay, with that covered, let's jump into a topic that honestly creates so much unnecessary fear.
You know, when you're just starting out, you hear these two completely opposite stories. The first one is a scary story, right? People will tell you, oh, don't put your money in mutual funds. It's a trap. They lock it up, and you'll never see it again when you actually need it. And then there's the other story, which is just as dangerous. It's this fantasy that a mutual fund is exactly like your savings account. You can just pull money out anytime, any day, like it's an ATM, and there are absolutely no consequences. Well, I'm here to tell you that both of those stories are dead wrong. One is a myth that's just designed to scare you, and the other is a misunderstanding that could cost you a whole lot of your hard-earned money. So here's my promise to you for the next 25 minutes. If you give me your focus, I'm going to introduce you to what I call the invisible gatekeeper of your wealth. You're going to learn the exact rules of the game, how to withdraw your money from pretty much any mutual fund you can think of, completely free of charge, and, even more importantly, you're going to learn how to sidestep the biggest, most common mathematical trap that just wipes out the profits of so many impatient new investors.
To get this whole idea, you don't need a calculator, you don't need complex spreadsheets. All you need is a simple story. It's an analogy I love to use. I call it the resort checkout analogy. Trust me, it's the simplest way to understand how all of this really works. So picture this. You're planning a holiday. You find this incredible luxury resort and they're offering a massive discount. But there's a catch. The deal is only valid if you promise to book and stay for the full week, 7 days. You think, great deal, and you book it. Now, because you made that promise, the hotel manager goes ahead and buys fresh food for your 7 days of meals, they schedule the cleaning staff, they get everything ready. They might even turn away other guests because your room is reserved. But then, on day 2, your plans suddenly change and you decide you have to leave. Now, the hotel manager isn't going to lock you in the room. You're free to go, of course. But when you get to the front desk to check out, you'll see a small early checkout fee on your bill. Now, this isn't a punishment. It's just to cover their costs for the promise you broke. The food that's going to go to waste, the staff they've already scheduled, it's a fee for discipline.
And that right there is exactly what an exit load is in a mutual fund. It is literally that early checkout fee. It's a tiny percentage the fund company charges you if you decide to pull out your money before a specific predefined period of time is over. It's not a trap. It's not there to steal your money. It's a system designed to encourage discipline and, as we'll see, to protect all the other investors who decided to keep their promise.
Okay, so this is super important. When you pay this fee, where does the money actually go? A lot of people think it goes into the fund manager's bonus or it's extra profit for the mutual fund company. No. That is a huge misconception. Every single rupee of that exit load you pay goes straight back into the mutual fund scheme itself. It's returned to the pool of money. And let's look at exactly why this brilliant system exists. Let's imagine a mutual fund is like a big team. Now one day, the market tanks. The news channels are flashing red, screaming, "Crash!" A few thousand nervous investors completely panic. They all rush to withdraw their money on the very same day, pulling out, let's say, 500 crores from the fund. Well, the fund manager doesn't just have 500 crores in cash sitting in a drawer. That money is working for you. It's invested in great companies for the long term. So, to pay back these panicking investors, the fund manager is forced to sell some of those really good stocks. And because he has to sell them in a rush on a day when the market is already down, he probably has to sell them for a loss. Now, who does this hurt? It hurts the loyal investors, the disciplined ones who didn't panic and stayed put. They now see the value of their own investment, the NAV, go down, not because anything is wrong with the companies, but because of the actions of the impatient crowd.
And right there, that is the beautiful logic of the exit load. That small fee acts as a barrier. It basically says, look, if you're going to leave in a panic and force the fund to sell good assets at a bad price, you will pay a small price for that disruption. And that money will go right back into the fund to protect the value for the disciplined investors who stayed. It is a shield. It protects the serious, long-term wealth builders from the emotional, short-term traders. It's all about stability and fairness.
Okay, so we get the why. Now let's talk about the how. What are the actual numbers? What's the rule? Well, for most equity mutual funds in India, the ones that invest in the stock market for growth, there is a very simple standard rule you just have to burn into your memory. The standard rule is this: 1% for 365 days. Let's break it down. Let's say you invest 1 lakh rupees into an equity fund. If you get impatient and decide to withdraw that money on, say, day 330, any time before you've completed a full year, the fund will charge you a 1% exit load. Now here is a really important detail. That 1% is calculated on the total withdrawal amount on that day. So if your investment grew to, say, 1,10,000 rupees, the fee is 1% of that full amount, which is 1,100 rupees. It is not 1% of just your 10,000 rupee profit. But what if you just show a little patience?
If you just wait until day 366, just one single day after completing the full year, that invisible gate just swings wide open. The exit load literally drops to 0. Poof, gone. You can take out your entire 1,10,000 and you will not pay a single paisa in exit load. In our little example, just by waiting about a month longer, you've saved yourself 1,100 rupees. The system is just beautifully designed to reward one thing, and one thing only: patience.
Now you're probably thinking, okay, Krish, that makes sense for long-term equity investing. But what about other types of funds? And that's a great question. It wouldn't make any sense to have a 365-day rule on a fund where you're just parking money for a couple of months. And this is where the system is really smart. The rules are tailored to the purpose of the fund.
So let's look at the different timelines. For equity funds designed for long-term wealth, that gate is set at 365 days. But for debt funds, which are often used for shorter goals, maybe 1 to 3 years, the exit load period is much, much shorter, maybe just 30 days or 90 days. And then you have the real short-term specialists, liquid funds. These are for parking money you might need in a week or two. For these, the exit load period is tiny, usually just 7 days. And it's often a graded load, which means on day 1, it's a very tiny fraction of a percent, and by day 7, it's already at 0.
So you see the logic, right? The rules are not random. They are perfectly designed to match how you're supposed to use the fund. A fund built for creating wealth over decades has a 1-year discipline rule. A fund built for parking your salary for a few days has a 7-day rule. The exit load is just a gentle reminder to use the right financial tool for the right financial job.
And now we have arrived at what I believe is the single most important part of this entire discussion. This is the big one. This is the concept that trips up so many new SIP investors. It's a simple little rule called the first in, first out method, or FIFO. Understanding this is what will separate you from the beginners who make very costly mistakes.
So what on earth is FIFO? It's actually really simple. The rule says the first units you bought are the first ones that get sold. But here's the crucial part. The system treats every single monthly SIP payment you make as its own separate, unique investment. And that means each of your SIPs has its own personal 365-day timer that starts ticking on the day that specific installment was invested. They don't all get bundled together under one big clock.
Let's see this trap in action. Say you start a 10,000 rupee SIP in January. You do it every single month for a full year all the way to December. So now it's January of the next year, the 13th month. You think to yourself, hey, I've been investing for a full year. I should be able to take all my money out for free now, right? Wrong. This is the mistake. When you try to withdraw, the FIFO rule kicks in. The system will first sell the units from your first SIP in January. That one is 12 months old, so great, no exit load on that. But what about the other 11 payments? Your February SIP is only 11 months old. Your March one is only 10 months old, all the way to your December SIP, which is just 1 month old. None of those have completed 365 days, so if you try to pull out your entire amount, you're going to get hit with a 1% exit load on 11 out of your 12 installments.
And this brings us to the golden rule of SIP withdrawals. This is the one thing I want you to write down. To withdraw your entire investment from an SIP without paying any exit load, you have to wait for the last one to finish its journey. The timer that really matters is the one on your final SIP payment. You must wait a full 365 days after your last installment went in. Only then is every single rupee, from start to finish, completely free of that 1-year gate. That is the ultimate discipline of SIP investing.
All right, we have covered a lot of ground. I know these terms can sound a little intimidating at first, but once you get them, they're actually quite simple. So let's do a quick fire round to bust some of this jargon and make sure everything is absolutely crystal clear for you.
First, exit load. Let's lock this in. It is simply a fee for checking out early, just like in our resort story. It's a small charge for withdrawing your money before the agreed-upon time is up. Simple as that. Second, FIFO, or first in, first out. This is that super important rule for SIPs. It just means the system always sells your oldest investments first. The first units in are the first units out.
Third, Asset Management Company, or AMC. You hear this all the time. This is just the official name for the company that runs the fund. Think SBI Mutual Fund, HDFC Mutual Fund. They're the professionals managing the money for all of us.
And finally, this is a big one. Let's be perfectly clear on an exit load versus a lock-in period. They are not the same thing. Think of an exit load like a flexible gate. You can leave whenever you want, but if you leave too early, you just pay a small fee. A lock-in period, which you'll find in funds like tax-saving ELS funds, is a brick wall. You physically cannot get your money out for a fixed period, like 3 years, period. One is a fee, the other is a locked door.
So to wrap this all up, I want you to ask yourself a question about your own mindset. Because an exit load isn't just a rule in a document, it's a mirror. It forces you to decide who you are as an investor. Are you a quick tourist, just popping in and ready to flee at the first sign of bad weather? Or are you a patient owner, someone who is willing to sit tight, ride out the seasons, and watch your empire get built brick by brick? The answer to that question will determine your entire financial future.
If this helped you gain some clarity today, I'd be really grateful if you'd subscribe to the channel and give this a like and a share so we can help more people on their journey to financial peace. For more in-depth wisdom, you can always check out my book, The Legacy Diary. The link is right there in the description. Thank you so much for your time. Live rich and leave rich.